She walked onto a cracking lake in a blizzard, alone, at midnight. Not because anyone asked her, because 11 wolves were screaming under the ice. She didn't know what they were. She didn't know why the arrows buried in their flesh glowed silver. She didn't know why the metal burned her bare hands the moment she grabbed the first shaft. She pulled it out anyway. Then the second. Then the third. One by one, 10 wolves freed, 10 wolves dragging themselves to the bank. The 11th was different, bigger, farther out. 3 arrows, ice so thin it bent under her boots. And his eyes, when they found her face, were sapphire, fully conscious, watching her work. She pulled the last arrow. The ice shattered. They both went under. She didn't let go. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the last wolf wasn't just a wolf, and what she'd just done couldn't be undone. The year is 1345. Frostmoor doesn't sleep in winter. It dies. This province sits at the edge of the known world, where mountains stop pretending to be gentle, and wind carries no mercy. Snow falls here not in flurries, but in walls. Solid. Blinding. 6 feet of silence swallowing roads whole. The sun, when it bothers to rise, is a pale smear on a sky the color of ash. Matilda Hawthorne has lived inside this silence for 4 years. 26 years old. Hands rough from grinding roots and suturing wounds, boots patched in 3 places. Hair always pinned back, not vanity. Loose hair catches on branches when you're running. And in Frostmoor, you're always either running or preparing to run. She wasn't always here. Once, she walked marble corridors. Daughter of a royal physician, a man with an impeccable reputation and powerful enemies. Those enemies accused him of poisoning a rival pack lord. A lie, carefully constructed by men with more ambition than conscience. The court showed no loyalty to the fallen. Her father died in chains. Matilda lost everything overnight. She rebuilt herself in the Whispering Crags. 1 room, 1 hearth, a garden coaxed from near-frozen soil. She learned what the land could give. Which roots fought fever, which bark sealed wounds, which berries could slow a dying heart long enough for the body to remember how to fight. She decided she didn't need people. Then she made it true. On this particular evening, the blizzard is the worst in 2 winters. She's sealing her window shutters with packed moss when the smell hits her. Sharp, metallic, buried under the snow scent. Blood, but not ordinary blood. This blood smells electric. Ancient, like lightning poured into something living. Then the sound comes. Not 1 howl. 11. They tear through the storm in overlapping waves, each one deep enough to vibrate inside her chest. Each one fraying at the edges into something that isn't animal pain. Something that knows exactly what it is. Matilda doesn't deliberate. She pulls on her heaviest cloak, grabs her medical satchel, and walks into the storm. The glacial lake is a 1/4 mile from her cottage. By the time she reaches it, she can't feel her face. What she sees stops her cold. Beneath a collapsing shelf of black ice, thrashing in water so dark it looks like ink, are 11 wolves. Not the lean gray wolves of the northern forest. Something else entirely. Massive, ancient, each one the size of a small horse, pelts silver and black and deep brown, eyes glowing colors no natural creature should possess. And they are pinned, not just by ice. Each one has arrows buried in their shoulders, their haunches, the thick muscle of their necks. The arrows glow, pale, malicious. A silver-white pulse beating from every shaft, and where metal touches fur, the flesh doesn't bleed normally. It blackens, contracts, refuses to heal. Matilda has read enough rare manuscripts to recognize consecrated silver. Forged to stop supernatural healing. Forged to kill slowly. She doesn't stop to question what she's looking at. She steps onto the ice. It groans beneath her boots. She drops to her knees beside the first wolf. Up close, the creature's eyes are wild with pain, and something else. Something uncomfortably aware. Uncomfortably intelligent. She forces herself to focus. She strips off her gloves. Bare hands only. The grip has to be exact. Wraps her fingers around the shaft and pulls. The wolf screams. The arrow tears free in a burst of black-tinged blood. She presses cloth to the wound and moves. Her hands start burning within minutes. Consecrated silver doesn't just destroy supernatural flesh, it bites at her too, slower, a creeping sting crawling up her wrists toward her elbows. She keeps moving. The ice shelf is weakening, she can feel it. Every second costs her. 1, 2, 5, 8. The wolves she frees collapse onto the bank, breathing hard, alive. The 11th is the farthest out, where the ice is thinnest, where dark water moves hungrily beneath her feet. He is the largest by far, 700 pounds of silver-furred power, half submerged, pinned by 3 arrows, and even now, broken, trapped, half consumed by freezing water, something about him radiates authority. His eyes find her face, sapphire, not pale blue, not gray blue, true sapphire, deep, unbearably clear, and entirely conscious. He is watching her work. She pulls the first arrow, the ice cracks. She pulls the second, water floods over her knees. She wraps both hands around the third shaft, the worst one buried deep near his spine, and she pulls with everything she has left. The ice shatters. She goes into the water with him, cold like being stabbed everywhere at once. She seizes his thick scruff with both fists and kicks for the bank. The current fights her. Her lungs compress. The silver sting in her hands is now a full roar of pain tearing toward her shoulders. She does not let go. She hauls him onto the bank and collapses beside him. His chest rises, falls, rises again. Matilda closes her eyes for 3 seconds. Then she stands, picks up her satchel, and gets to work. 11 enormous wolves, 1 woman, and a storm that has no interest in waiting. She doesn't have room for 11 wolves in her cottage. What she has is a stone barn, large enough for 3 horses, which means barely large enough for what she drags and coaxes inside over the next hour. She builds the fire high, wraps wounds with linen soaked in yarrow and powdered silver nettle, the one herb ancient texts said counteracted silver toxicity. She thanks whatever instinct made her stock it. She moves from body to body, working by firelight, hands still burning, not stopping. She doesn't see the change begin. She hears it. A sound like something vast shifting beneath the surface of the world, bones finding new shapes, breath deepening into something more deliberate. She spins around. Where 11 wolves had been, 11 men now stand, or kneel, or lean against the stone walls catching their breath. Tall, all of them, broad-shouldered, battle-built, with the particular stillness of people accustomed to being the most dangerous thing in any room. Matilda doesn't scream. She backs against the far wall, her hand finds the handle of her surgical knife. She looks at them. "We mean you no harm." The voice comes from the center of the room, low, deliberate, absolute. She finds the man it belongs to, and she recognizes him immediately. The sapphire eyes, the same eyes that watched her work while his body was half consumed by ice. He is tall enough to angle his head beneath the barn's crossbeam. Silver black hair, dark stubble along his jaw, old scars at his collarbone, and beneath his shirt, her linen bandaging, still visible through the open collar. He takes 1 step toward her. She doesn't move away. "You pulled the arrows," he says. "Someone had to," she answers. She's annoyed to find her voice is steady. Something shifts in his expression, something too large and too raw to name. He reaches out, slowly, deliberately, and takes her burned hands in both of his, turns them palm up, examines the damage. The sting in her skin quiets, like a held breath finally released. She doesn't understand yet what has just happened. She doesn't know that among his kind, pulling consecrated silver from a shifter's flesh, absorbing part of that poison yourself to free someone else, is the deepest possible act of sacrifice. She doesn't know that, for the Alpha King of the Northern Brood, that act has triggered something ancient, something irrevocable. All she knows is that his hands are warm, and the pain has stopped. "I am Dorian Sterling," he says, "and I owe you a debt that has no ceiling." By the second morning, Matilda has a name for what Dorian is: Alpha King of the Northern Brood. ruler of a territory spanning half the continent's frozen upper reaches. Commander of the most powerful shifter pack in living memory. She has a name for what she feels tightening in her chest too. She won't say it aloud yet, but it's there. Warm, persistent, startling, every time their eyes meet across the small space of the barn. His men treat her with a deference that feels slightly absurd, surrounded by hay and drying herbs. She feeds them what she has. They eat in respectful silence. Nobody notices the two shadows moving through the tree line. Commander Sebastian Blackwell has been Dorian's most trusted lieutenant for 11 years. He has also, for the past 3, been quietly destroying everything that trust was built on. The silver arrows were his commission, paid for in secret, fired by mercenaries he will never acknowledge knowing. His goal was simple: remove the Alpha King, install himself as regent, remake the Northern Brood in his own image. Dorian survived. Sebastian moved immediately. With him is Colette Hawthorne. Matilda's younger sister is beautiful the way sharp things often are. Bright-eyed, quick-smiled, with a talent for performing warmth that fooled everyone except the people who knew her longest. 4 years in exile. Every single one of them spent constructing a way out. When Sebastian approached her, "Help me get close to the Alpha King, and you'll have the title, the court, the life you deserve," she agreed before he finished his sentence. She didn't entirely understand what was in the small glass vial at his belt. "Alpine spore," he told her. "Makes him confused, compliant. Just be there when he opens his eyes." Matilda is in the forest when they move, 30 yards from the cottage, hands in cold earth, digging for winter bloodroot, the last ingredient for the poultice, still knitting Dorian's wounds closed. Sebastian slips through the barn door. The spore is odorless. Dorian is already upright, already reaching for the door. He knows something is wrong, mouth open to warn his men. And then the world tilts sideways and his legs stop working, and he is against the wall and he cannot move. Sebastian melts back into the shadows. He doesn't need to be in the room. Colette does. Matilda pushes open the door with her elbow, bloodroot in both hands. She stops. The fire has burned low. In its dim copper light, Colette is leaning over Dorian, half conscious. Slumped against the wall, her hand against his face, the picture it makes is unmistakable and devastating. Dorian's sapphire eyes find Matilda across the room. Clouded, struggling, furious with a helplessness he can't break through. His mouth moves, no words come. Colette turns, sees her sister. For one honest, unguarded moment, something in her face looks almost like shame. Then she smooths it away and says very softly, "Matilda." The bloodroot falls from Matilda's hands. The door swings open behind her. The storm takes her. She runs, not blind panic. Matilda Hawthorne has survived 4 years alone in the harshest terrain in the northern provinces. Even grief can't fully override what's been carved into her bones. She moves deliberately, chooses paths where wind erases footprints, crosses 3 streams to break her trail, pushes south through the mountain pass she's mapped since her second winter in the crags. She tells herself she isn't heartbroken. She tells herself she hadn't been foolish enough to invest anything in 2 days. She tells herself the warmth in her chest was simply cold. Misread. She is still telling herself these things 6 weeks later when she reaches the southern coast. The village of Ashport is small, wind-weathered, thoroughly uninterested in anyone's past. She settles there under the name Mira Callahan. Builds a new practice slowly. The quiet herbalist and midwife at the edge of the bluffs. The woman who knows which plants save you and which ones don't. 3 years pass, then 2 more. Then the twins arrive and rearrange everything she thinks she knows about herself. A boy and a girl. She names them Emmerich and Sarah. They have her dark lashes, her stubborn jaw, and their father's eyes. Sapphire. Startling. Unmistakable. She sees Dorian in their faces every single day, and she loves them so completely that it becomes, over time, a kind of answer to a question she hadn't known she was still asking. They are 5 years old when the sovereign stigma first appears, and everything Matilda thought she'd buried comes back. It happens on a Tuesday, late autumn. A traveling trader's cart horse bolts through the village square and nearly runs Emmerich down. Sarah throws out her small hand. Instinct, nothing more. Her fingertips light up silver, not candle silver, not pale. The same consecrated, celestial silver that once pulsed from the arrows Matilda pulled from the ice. The horse stops as though it has run into a wall. The square goes quiet. Matilda is across the cobblestones in seconds. She pulls both children close, eyes sweeping the square, cataloging who saw, how much, what needs to be managed. The silver fades from Sarah's fingertips within moments. Emmerich stares at his sister. Then, in complete seriousness, "Can I do that too?" That night, after the children are asleep, Matilda sits by the fire and finally allows herself to understand what she's been refusing to understand for 5 years. The sovereign stigma is not a common shifter trait. Her father's manuscripts mentioned it exactly once, in a text so old the ink had faded to brown. The silver mark of sovereign bloodline, carried only by the direct heirs of an alpha king. These children cannot hide forever. She's still staring into the fire when she hears boots on the path outside. Too heavy, too deliberate, too certain of where they're going. The door opens before she can reach it. Dorian Sterling fills the frame. Older, 5 years of searching carved into the lines around his eyes. Travel clothes, dark, road-worn, but unmistakable. His sapphire eyes find her immediately. The air in the room shifts the way it does before a storm. "Matilda," he stops. Because past her shoulder, on the small bed near the wall, 2 dark-haired children sleep with their faces turned toward the firelight. Eyes closed. But the shape of their faces is the shape of his face, and he has enough of his mother's gift to know exactly what he's looking at. His breath leaves him. The silence stretches. "How long," he says quietly, "have you been here?" "Long enough." She doesn't move. "Leave, Dorian." "I cannot." "You managed 4 years without finding me. One more night will." Sebastian confessed. He says it like he's setting a knife on the table between them. Carefully, so she can see exactly what it is. 3 years after Frostmoor, full court, on record. A pause. Colette set that scene deliberately. She's been banished. Sebastian has been dealt with. His eyes don't leave hers. "I have spent 5 years looking for you." She doesn't move. Her hands are very still at her sides. The coal in her chest, the one she's told herself for 5 years has gone cold. Is not cold at all. "Those are my children," he says. "They are my children," she answers. "Who happen to also be yours." He crosses the room in 3 steps. Stops directly in front of her. Close enough that she has to lift her chin to meet his eyes. He doesn't touch her. He waits, hands at his sides, like a man who has learned something hard about waiting. "Tell me what you need me to do," he says. "To earn the right to be in this room." She doesn't answer him that night. She sends him to the village inn. Tells him they'll speak in the morning, when the children are awake and she's had time to arrange her thoughts. He goes without argument. That alone shifts something in her. By a fraction. She is not asleep 3 hours before dawn when the sound comes. It isn't subtle. Commander Sebastian Blackwell's mercenaries were never sent here for subtlety. They're here because Sebastian, even banished, even broken, is still dangerous. A tracker in his pay has been following Dorian's route south for 2 weeks. The calculation is simple. Alpha King away from his army, distracted, something he values in a place with no fortifications. Best opportunity he'll ever have. The cottage door comes off its hinges with the first blow. Matilda is already up. Children already in the back room, heavy oak bar across the inner door. Hunting bow already in hand when the first man crosses the threshold. She draws. She does not hesitate. Arrow through the shoulder, he goes down. 2 more step over him. Outside. Too many voices. Surrounding the building. She runs the numbers fast and reaches a conclusion she doesn't like. Then she hears Dorian. Not words. Not even human sound. What comes from outside is something below language and above thunder, a roar she feels through the soles of her feet, through the timber floor, through the marrow of her bones. The two men in her doorway freeze. The cottage wall shakes. Something enormous leans against it from outside. The first mercenary turns to run, makes it 2 steps. The second drops his weapon. It doesn't last long. An alpha king in full sovereign form, with the bonfire of mate and children threatening to be extinguished, is not a creature that can be stopped by hired swords. By the time gray dawn breaks over the bluffs, it's finished. Sebastian's mercenaries have scattered. The ones who didn't scatter won't be reporting to anyone. Matilda opens the back room. Emmerich and Sarah are pressed against the wall, wide-eyed, unharmed. Emmerich's small fists are raised. Sarah's fingertips glow silver bright, fading now as the danger does. Dorian stands in the broken doorway, shifted back, shirt torn, blood along his jaw that isn't his. He looks at the children first, counting them, confirming they're whole. Then he looks at Matilda. She looks back at him. "You came back," she says, and the words carry everything she hasn't said in 5 years. "I never stopped looking." He holds her gaze. "I told you that." Then Emmerich steps out from behind his mother's leg. Chin up. Father's eyes. 5 years old and carrying a king's bearing. "Are you the man who made Mama sad?" The question lands like a stone in still water. Dorian crouches down, eye level, steady. "Yes," he says. "Not on purpose, but yes." "Are you sorry?" "More than I know how to say." Emmerich considers this. Then he steps aside. The smallest gesture, it means everything. Matilda doesn't move toward him. She's not built for easy surrender, not even to things she wants. But she lifts her chin. "The children come with me, wherever I go, whatever is decided. Of course, and I will not be a decoration in your court. I come as myself. There is no version of this where I'd ask you to be anything else." She's quiet for a moment. Outside, sea wind moves through the broken doorway, salt and the pale beginning of winter. "You should see their eyes in the daylight," she says finally. "When the silver comes, it looks like yours." He stands slowly, doesn't cross the space between them. She hasn't given him that yet, and he will not take what hasn't been offered, but his eyes hold hers, and in them she sees 5 years of searching. The ache of a bond that never cared whether she believed in it or not. "Will you come home?" he asks. Just that. Matilda Hawthorne, ruined and rebuilt, who pulled silver arrows from 11 wolves in the dark and saved a king without knowing it, who raised 2 sovereign heirs alone on a windswept coast and never once broke, looks at the man her children have his eyes from, and makes her decision. "Ask me again in the morning," she says, "after you help me fix that door." He almost smiles. It reaches his eyes before his mouth. And it is real. Outside, dawn comes in from the sea, spreading across the bluffs in long, cold bands of gold. And that is where we leave them. A broken door, a man who never stopped searching, a woman who never once broke, and 2 children with silver in their fingertips and a king's blood in their veins. If this story held you, you already know what to do. Hit that like button, right now. It takes 1 second and it tells me to keep making stories like this one. Subscribe if you haven't, because next week, another world, another woman, another story nobody saw coming. And if you want to know what happens next to Matilda, Dorian, Emmerich, and Sarah, drop a comment below. 1 word, more. That's all you have to type. If enough of you say it, I'll write the sequel. Now go tell someone about this story, the kind of person who stays up too late reading, the kind who feels everything too deeply. They need this. I'll see you in the next one.